there anyone not ready? Western masculinist thought attempts to perform objectivity by policing femininity. The creation of objectivity as a method for truth-telling is the basis of social ontology. Haraway explains in 97. Within modest truth-telling, when one might watch a demonstration, they cannot witness the demonstration by a high at which small birds were suffocated, the ladies interrupted experiments by demanding that the air be let into struggling bird. The men assembled at the night to conduct a procedure up to attest the result, enhancing agency through the masculine virtues of fully regulated public spaces. Modest men were too self-invisible, transparent that their reports would not be polluted by the body. Epistemological movement, the grounding of several centuries of race, class, and sex discourses of objective of scientific reports. These discourses feed into the masculine scientific modesty. Masculinity is more simply nature of truth-telling. A gentleman's epistemology agency involved in kind of special kind of transparency. Colored sex and liberating sons do a lot of that work and become similarly transparent. The countless object of the self-invisibility, transparency of the modest whiteness at the precisely the focus of critique of objectivity as it produces itself in a culture of non-culture. The story of the scientific revolution has set up a narrative about objectivity and continues to get in the way of more adequate self-critical techno-science committed and situated knowledges. And stigma around cyborg modification gives power to the normative natural body. Discussions about property rights around organs deems queers as unnatural or deviant. Ramachandran explains in 09. Attempts to resist technological advances and maintain a rigid distinction between humans and property may lead to less than more human social fluency. Technology blurs out that this line holds the potential to improve lives of those who want to improve and modernize their bodies. Many of institutions the right to control one's own body is fundamentally human dignity, harmony, the flourishing of liberty. The concept might support the right to protect one body from intrusion, but when it comes to the right to mutilate one's own body, it constitutes concept of euthanasia to sell one's organs or otherwise disrespect one's own body. The notion that the body has special status is commonly held. Many other countries also prohibit organs held that this view loses its appeal quickly when we understand the community find it expresses less. The lack of self-respect another community may find ultimately fulfilling meaningful use of the body, changing the shapes of one's genitals might seem disrespectful to one of the body which is formed, but for some transgender person, it is a self-affirming expression of self and identity. In a plural society, dignitary concerns and inadequate justification for forbidding people commodifying their bodies rely on conceptions of human nature, what constitutes good life, not universally widely shared, such as religious or intuitionist conceptions. And what is natural and unnatural use of the body is on basis of objectivity. The division of compartmentalization of the body is a basis of assigning what a normative body looks like, or normative objective body looks like. Haraway explains in 91. Ideologies about human diversity have been formulated in terms of frequency parameters like blood groups or intelligence scores. An object of persons can be reasonably thought of in terms of disassembly or reasonably no natural architecture constrains the system. The universe objects can be known scientifically must be formulated on problems in communication and engineering. Integrity or sincerity of the Western self gives way to the decision procedure that expert system. No objects, bodies, or spaces second themselves. Any component interface with any proper standard or proper code can be constructed for processing signals in common language. The cyborg is not subject to becomes biopolitics. The cyborg simulates politics, a man more potent field of operations. And we are all already cyborgs, but the technology used to craft cyborgs is both everywhere and opaque. This opacity allows for techno-rationality to be inherent in the production and infiltration of masculinity into the objective self. The very purpose of objectivity is to become opaque, to further the binary between the mind and body. Haraway explains in 91. Modern machines are microelectronic devices, and they're everywhere and invisible. The silicon chip is a surface for writing. The ubiquity and invisibility of cyborgs expresses silhouette such a machine belts are so deadly they are hard to see politically as materially. They are about consciousness or assimilation. The hard science is about the realm of the boundaries of confusion. Americans see deep in dualism to the mind and body and animal machine. Idealism with materialism, social practices, symbolic formulations of physical artifacts associated with high technology and scientific culture. A slightly pervasive shift in perspective might better enable us to contest meanings as well as other forms of power and pleasure in technology-mediated societies. And borders between what is and isn't natural are created and reinforced by wars created to maintain borders of what should be objective. These border wars are waged on the queer body by limiting queer imagination. Haraway explains in 91. Modern production seems like a dream of cyber colonization, like the modern wars of cyber authority, the tradition of racist male domination, capital, the tradition of presence, the tradition of appropriation, the nature of resource productions of culture, the tradition of reproduction, the self and reflection of the relations between organisms and machines have been a war where the stakes between war have been territories of production, reproduction, and imagination. And the inherent control of gender technological power is created and sustained by heteropatriarchy, which outlines the abilities for bodies to be normalized on the basis of productivity. The use of techno power to control boundaries creates and sustains a path for bodies to travel down. Haraway explains in 91. New technologies seem deeply involved in the forms of privatization. This facilitates much meaning permanent high-tech military establishment, the cultural, economic expenses of most people, especially women, high-tech gender imagination, the producer imagination that can contemplate the destruction of the palette, sci-fi, and see the consequences more of our imagination of militarized, and the other realities of social nuclear warfare are inescapable. But the body of kind of a private satisfaction and utility maximizing machine, our described next thing is socio-biological origin that stress of genetic capitalism explaining inevitable dialectic domination of male and female gender roles, who controls the interpretation of body boundaries, and the medical hermeneutics is a major feminist issue, a major social political danger of the formation of strongly bimodal social structure in the masses of women and men and ethnic groups of especially people of color controlled by high repressive apparatuses ranging from entertainment to surveillance and disappearance. And Society creates lines of normative orientation not only by policing borders, but by expecting queer bodies to maintain and reproduce the pathways that allow for oppression. The masculine view of ontology presses bodies into those lines by committing material and ontological violence for those who wander. Ahmed explains in 06. Following the line is not disinterested. To follow the line takes time and energy resources, which means that one of it does not take away from stereotype from one's does not stay apart from the line of one's life as a very shape of how one moves through time and space. So we follow lines, and following them, we become committed to that, to what they lead us to, as well as where they take us. Commitment is also commitment to make an effective action. Following lines involves a form of social involvement. The relationship between inheritance lines have been given us a point of arrival, familiar, social place, and reproduction of man. When we return to give the line by extending the line, we must take attention to the pressure to make conversations, the social pressure to follow a certain course, live a certain kind of life, and reproduce life and feel like a physical presence in the body, which creates its own impressions. We are pressing the line just as lines, but the accumulation of such moments of pressure, which I call stress points. In our advocacy, we advocate for cyber feminism through the transference of organs. Solvency. Gaining full ownership over one's identity is derived from allowing the commodification and modification of that body. Ramachandran explains it in 09. This theory would not only protect the body from one's own intrusion, but it would also protect the right to modify one's own body. Autonomy includes the autonomy to contract one's autonomy. There's a strong vision of this view would require the commodification of the body be permanent. Simply was not good. I'm good by acknowledging such policy, but because of due other side and inferior with fundamental rights of ownership of one body, strong libertarian to seek provision of commodification of bodies is just a position to autonomy. Coherent application of this view would therefore seem to permit organ selling. But the extent of this view derives from the right to commodify one's own body, the property rights of one's own body, has the right to use it, exclude it, possess and alienate other persons of their own bodies, and they must have the right to use it and possessory rights of their own body and parts. And wandering from the boundaries of a normative body that creates social objectivity means stumbling into new spaces with new orientations and desires. These desires become the embodiment of a journey into a queer world outside of the lines of normative society. Ahmed explains in 06. So at one level, we do not encounter that which is of course and get the accidental chance encounters having they redirect us and open up us into new world. Deviation leads to a mark in the ground which can help generate lines in which cross the ground in unexpected ways. Inhibiting a body is not extension by the skin of social means that the world requires a new shape and makes a new person's becoming reoriented and involves the disorientation of encountering the world differently. It made me wonder about orientation, for how much feeling at home or knowing which way we are facing is about the making of world. Disorientation is a way of describing the feelings that gather when we lose our sense of lose a sense of who it is that we are. Such losses can be converted into the joy of the future has been opened up. Even when orientations seem to be about which way we are facing the present, they also point us toward a new future, risking departure from the straight and narrow makes new future possible, which might involve going astray, getting lost, or even becoming queer. The feminist cyborg expands the boundaries of what constitutes a normative body. The creation of a new body for the transference of organs queers what a natural use of the body is by polluting that body and allows for queer imagination that operates outside of social constructions of gender. Is this cool? Haraway explains in 91. Monsters have always defined the limits of the community in Western imagination. Our bodies ourselves, our bodies are massive powers and ideas. Cyborgs are no exception. Cyborg is not innocent, is not made born of regardless, is not seeking for identity to generate and technical tools. The machine is not to be an animated worship and dominating. The machine is less for a process of aspect of our embodiment. Cyborgs might consider more seriously a partial fluid, some place aspect of the second sexual embodiment. Gender may not be a global identity after all, even if it's a profound historical depth. Holistic politics depend on the metaphors of rebirth and reproductive stuff. Cyborgs have more to do with regeneration, suspicious reproduction, makes more birthing. For salamanders, regeneration involves rebirth and destruction, restoration and function, concept, possibility of 20-year other odd topographical production decided form of energy. We have all been injured profoundly. We require regeneration, not rebirth, and possibilities for reconstitution to include the utopian dream for human monsters, world without gender. Help express taking responsibility means refusing anti-science metaphysics, demonology, and technology, and so means embracing the simple task of reconstructing boundaries of daily life. Cyborg imagery can set just a way out of means out of dualisms in which we have explained our bodies and the tools ourselves out of imagination of feminism speaking in tongues. It means both building and destroying machines, identities, categories, relationships, and space stories. Though we are both bound in a spiral dance, I would rather be a cyborg than a goddess. Open for cross-sex.
Okay, I'm sending the app right now. I accidentally didn't get the 2 cards at the end.
Okay, I was.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It was just 2 cards at the end. Here, let me resend it.
Okay, can we start?
Yeah, you can.
Okay, all right. Do you have any questions?
Oh, I was gonna ask back on what do you mean by opaque?
Opacity?
Opacity, right?
We're saying that technoscience within the status quo is opaque, in which it's like invisible and it's hard to see, but it's actually ingrained in our everyday life. So like technoscience like infiltrates our lives in small ways, like the little machines that we use, and we aren't really aware of like the way that we all are cyborgs because we all use tools and machines, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist in our lives. And that
So
even though it's opaque.
everyone is a cyborg.
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically this means even the use of contact lenses, the way that we use technology to change our orientation of the world, that's an example of how cyber technology is used.
Okay, so where does feminism enter this cyborg aspect?
So currently, technoscience, we say that it's
Inherently masculine.
It's inherently masculine. It's viewed in a masculinist. It's viewed in a masculinist lens, and that masculinist lens essentializes the gender binary in that we either have to be male or female, and that we can't modify our body or use technoscience to modify our bodies in ways other than that.
This is also our border wars argument, that when we have things such as a man and a woman, that this is violent and exclusionary to those who do not fit within that frame.
Okay. Okay, so we need to look through being a cyborg from a feminist lens?
Well, we advocate for feminist cyber politics through the transference of organs. So like this.
So what does that mean, feminist cyborg politics?
Yeah. So this, I mean, the way that we deploy this argument is kind of like we kind of blur the gender binary. So the way that we can do this is we advocate for transference of human organs. I.e., if I wanted 2 penises on my chest and a vagina on my ear, that this would radically change the way that people see my gender and radically change the way that I orientate myself to the world, as well as the way that the world orientates towards me.
Okay, so, but what does that mean, like, in application, what does it mean to advocate for feminist cyber politics? Like, what's the action that you take advocating that?
Well, we would argue that the transference of human organs, or the transference of organs.
Okay, how do you do that? Like, I understand that you want to do that, but where's your solvency that says you can do that?
I mean, all of our solvency talks about how when we have the transference of human organs, that we can break down the border wars that exclude, especially the queer body. That's one of our Heroin 97 cards.
Like I could literally break off my thumb, sew it onto her body.
I could easily transfer 2 noses on my face as well. It's just literally the application of body parts and being able to put that anywhere I kind of desire.
I could cut off my hair and give her a cute extension.
That's what makes feminist cyborg politics especially different, is the fact that we can take different body parts and do different things with them.
So you think that everyone should do this?
No. It's not necessarily everyone should do this, but it's an application of anyone that wants to modify their body definitely can in different ways. And they're not limited to just transferring an arm for an arm, but rather doing any kind of body modification they want.
Okay.